They said she died in the storm. Said no woman could survive a night like that. With her ribs cracked, her hands burned raw, and Crane's men sweeping the ridge to finish what the blizzard started. And the town believed it, because believing her dead kept the banker's red ink secrets buried. But the storm wasn't what tried to kill her. Ink did. A forged transfer slip. A map marked in blood-red circles, pointing straight at Carter Land. When a black rancher found her half-frozen and dragged her out of the whiteout, the truth didn't stay buried. Crane didn't call the law. He owned it. He didn't chase justice. He burned the cabin to erase it. Before we continue, if you believe truth still matters in the West, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Snow drove through Ash Creek like the Lord was sweeping the valley clean before Christmas morning. It cut sideways across Main Street, burying the hitching posts, hushing the lanterns, and tightening around the saloon until even the drunkest men stepped back from the windows, as if God himself had pressed a finger to their lips. Noah Pike didn't wait to hear the rest of the shouting. 11 years old, light on his feet, quick to see trouble coming, he'd learned the hard way that when grown men started yelling about sin and justice in the same breath, someone small got hurt next. He kept his head down and slipped along the saloon wall, boots skidding on drifted snow. Behind him, the mob boiled out of the doorway with the cold. Boots thudding, curses cracking like whips. Witch. Poisoner. Throw her out. Let the snow have her. Noah didn't look. He'd seen too many faces twisted by whiskey and Sunday righteousness. He knew the sound of rope being pulled tight. The wind carried another shout. Sheriff Doyle's voice trying to sound in charge but swallowed by the storm. "Enough! Move her out, now! We ain't trying her in this weather!" The crowd surged. Noah pressed flat against the corner post, breath fogging shallow. A woman's bare feet slid past him, dragging crimson half-moons in the white. Her wrists were bound with rough twine. Her hair whipped across her face as the men shoved her toward the crossroads, where the snow drifted waist-high. She didn't cry out. Not once. One of the men slipped in the icy ruts, dropped something. Paper, stiff, official-looking. It skittered toward Noah's boot. He snatched it up before anyone saw. A seal. Red. Pressed deep. The bank's crest. Bartholomew Crane's mark. A cold different from the storm hit Noah's chest. Crane's seal meant danger that didn't melt with snow. He folded the paper tight and shoved it inside his coat. Someone spotted him. "That boy again! Pike kid! Get over here!" Noah bolted. The shouts cracked across the street like gunfire. He dodged around a wagon half buried in drifts, slid under the rail fence, and cut toward the dark line of cottonwoods marking the Pecos road to Saul Carter's ranch. The wind slapped his face raw. Snow stung his eyes. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Behind him, the mob tumbled back into the storm, dragging the woman out toward the flats, toward the death sentence that came without a rope. Noah ran harder. The valley was darker than usual, clouds piled thick above the ridges, as if the Lord had drawn a heavy curtain over the world. Snow swallowed every sound except the crunch of Noah's boots and the faint ringing in his ears from that single word, witch, hurled like a stone at a woman who hadn't even fought back. He reached the split in the road where the trail bent toward Saul Carter's place. The wind thrashed at him, nearly knocking him sideways, but the ranch lights were faint ahead, a dim flicker behind the rib cage of the barn. Warmth. Shelter. Someone who didn't ask too many questions. Noah stumbled through the gate, slammed it behind him, and leaned over, hands on his knees, breath dragging hard. Snow clung to his eyelashes. He scraped it off and forced himself to move. Saul hated hesitation, hated wasted time. Said the Lord didn't give second chances to boys who couldn't make up their minds. The cabin door cracked open before Noah reached the porch. Saul stood there, broad-shouldered, dark coat dusted white, face lit by a single lamp behind him. He didn't speak at first. He didn't need to. "You get yourself seen?" he asked at last. "No, sir." "Trouble in town?" "Yes, sir." "You run from it?" "Yes, sir." Saul stepped aside. Noah entered. The door shut, deadbolt sliding like a verdict. "Tell it," Saul said. Noah swallowed. His fingers were stiff with cold as he pulled the folded paper from his coat. He placed it on the table between them like something alive. Saul's jaw tightened when he saw the seal. "Crane," he muttered. "Lord help us." Before he could say more, a sound carried faintly through the hiss of the storm, soft, uneven, almost like someone stumbling barefoot along the frozen trail. Saul's head snapped toward the window. The lamp flame trembled. "You hear that, boy?" "Yes, sir." A shape lurched out of the white. A woman, barefoot, arms bound. Snow crusted on her hair. She moved like someone walking the last 10 steps of her life. Saul grabbed his coat. "Noah, fire hotter, door ready." The boy ran. Saul stepped into the storm. The wind swallowed him whole. But Noah knew one thing, sure as scripture. Whatever the town had thrown into the blizzard tonight wasn't dead yet. And whatever she was running from was coming next. The storm swallowed Saul Carter the way a church door swallows sound. Quick, final, unquestioned. Snow knifed sideways across the yard as he pushed through it. One arm shielding his face, the other braced to catch whoever the Lord had sent stumbling toward his porch on a night like this. He found her 10 steps from the gate. Bare feet, blue skin, wrists bound rough with barn twine. A woman, half collapsed against a drift, head bowed as if the blizzard itself were pressing her into the earth. Her breath came thin and broken, a candle flame about to gutter. Saul didn't ask her name, didn't ask what the town had accused her of. The mob's roar still echoed in the wind. Witch, poisoner, curse. And he'd lived long enough to know those words meant the same thing every winter. Someone weaker was chosen to die. He crouched beside her, slipped an arm under her shoulders, and lifted. Light. Too light. She sagged against him, barely conscious. "Stay with me," he said, short, firm, a command more than comfort. No answer. Only the wheeze of cold trying to take her lungs. He swept his coat around her shoulders, pulled her close to his chest to block the wind, and turned toward the cabin. Her feet dragged trenches in the snow. A movement behind him, the wind carrying the faint jangle of tack. Somewhere down the trail, horses shifted, voices blurred by distance but sharp with purpose. Men tracking, men following the route of their own cruelty. Soul's jaw locked. No time. He hooked the woman higher against him, forcing her weight onto his back, and pushed into the storm. Every step was a fight. Snow clawed at his boots. Ice bit deep. Long shadows kept flickering behind him. 3 riders, maybe 4, their silhouettes swallowed and spit out by the shifting white. "Lord," he muttered, "give me 10 more yards." The cabin lantern was a weak glow ahead. He angled right, off the main trail, into the low swell behind the corral, where the drifts were deep enough to bury tracks. He stepped carefully, heel first, tamping down snow so the wind would erase his trail. The woman's hand twitched against his chest. A small sound, barely a breath. "They're coming," she murmured. Her voice was ragged glass. "I know," Soul said. "You're safe for now. Don't speak." Another jangle of tack, closer this time. Soul tightened his grip and kept moving. He hit the porch steps just as the wind shifted, lifting his tracks into whirling powder. The storm did the rest, wiping the trail clean like chalk on a slate. Noah yanked the door open the moment Saul reached it. Heat burst out, carrying the smell of burning pine. His small hands grabbed the edge of Saul's coat, trying to help drag the woman inside. "Get the twine off," Saul ordered. "Yes, sir." Noah worked fast. His fingers shook, not from fear, he'd learned to hide that, but from the shock of seeing a full-grown woman bound like livestock. Saul lowered her onto the cot near the tussle stove. Steam rose immediately from her hair. Her lips were cracked, skin raw where the wind had flayed it. "Water," Saul said. Noah passed the tin cup. Saul brought it to her mouth. "Drink." She tried. The first swallow shook her whole body. Outside, a horse whinnied, sharp, too close. Saul set the cup down and strode to the window. Snow blurred everything beyond a few yards, but he could make out figures, 3 riders, pausing at the bend in the road. One dismounted. Another raised a lantern, swinging it back and forth like a signal. "Looking for her," Saul said quietly. Noah stiffened. "What do we do?" Saul watched the lantern sway, watched the riders argue in the wind, watched them try to find the tracks the storm had already eaten. "Nothing," he answered. "We do nothing until they choose the wrong trail." The woman flinched at the word "they." Saul turned back toward her. Her eyes were half open now, dark, glazed with cold, but focused on him with a kind of exhausted fear that needed no explanation. "You're in my house," he said. "You're not leaving tonight." Her fingers curled weakly around the edge of the blanket. Not resistance. Instinct. Like someone expecting to be dragged again. "Rest," he said. "You're safe enough for 1 hour." Outside, the riders turned their horses uphill. Saul let the curtain fall. 1 hour, maybe 2. No more. The Lord didn't give gifts without expecting a fight afterward. He checked the bolt on the door. Then he said, low and certain, "The storm bought us time, not mercy." The cabin settled around them the way snow settles on a grave. Silent, heavy, deciding. Saul dropped another log into the stove. Flames spat, caught, and spread through the pine like a warning finally finding breath. The woman didn't move. Steam curled off her clothes, rising in thin ghost lines toward the rafters. Noah knelt beside the cot, small hands working the twine at her wrists. The knots were tight, cut deep, as if the men who tied them meant to leave a message more than restrain her. "Careful," Sol said. "Yes, sir." Noah loosened the last loop. The rope peeled away, revealing raw skin rubbed nearly to bone. She didn't even flinch, just watched the boy with those dark, hollow eyes, as if trying to decide whether he was real or another trick of cold. Saul poured a kettle of warmed water into a bowl. He set it beside Noah, then crouched. "Dip the cloth. Dab. Don't rub." Noah obeyed. The cloth touched her wrists with soft precision. Her breath hitched once, sharp, like something inside her had remembered pain. The storm battered the windows. The door's hinges creaked with each gust. "Mr. Carter," Noah whispered. "They almost found her. They will again." "How soon?" "Soon enough." Sol rose. His boots thudded across the floorboards as he checked the shutters, the latch, the rifle on the wall. Each movement was quiet, measured, a man marking the borders of a war he hadn't chosen. Behind him, the woman struggled upright. Her voice was rough stone. "I should go." Sol didn't turn. "You step outside, you die. It's safer for you if I'm not here." "That ain't what I said." She pushed the blanket off her shoulders, legs shaking as she tried to stand. Her feet barely touched the floor before she dropped back onto the cot like a rag cut loose from a line. Noah grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, don't. Please, you're frozen through." She looked at him the way people look at a door they know they can't open. Sol came back, planting himself between her and the exit. "You walk out," he said, voice low, unyielding, "and you'll be found before you reach the barn. They're smellin' blood. Witch tales don't keep men warm in a storm. They need a body for that." Her gaze flicked toward the window. The wind howled like a congregation begging for judgment. "No trials in blizzards," she murmured. "No honest ones in this town at all." For a moment, the three of them just listened to the storm scraping across the walls. Then she said, barely audible, "I won't bring trouble to your boy." Noah stiffened. "I ain't his—" Sol lifted a hand, stopping him. "Trouble came before you walked through my gate." He picked up the folded paper from the table, the crane seal still red as a wound. He held it toward the stove light. The wax shone back like an eye. "You think they threw you out there 'cause of gossip?" Saul asked. "Crane don't move mobs unless he's hiding something." Her breath stilled. She looked at the seal as if recognizing a predator. "You know it," Sol said. She lowered her eyes. "I know. He wanted me gone before sunrise. Why? A beat. The stove cracked sharply, like a gunshot muffled by wood. She worked her jaw. Because I saw something. Something he didn't want seen. Soul didn't push further. Not yet. Questions could wait. Survival couldn't. He draped his coat around her again. You'll stay till morning. That's law in this house. She hesitated. And after morning? Soul glanced at Noah, the boy standing too straight, trying too hard not to shiver though his clothes were still damp from running home. After morning, Soul said, we talk. When you can stand without falling. Outside, a sliver of lantern light flickered along the ridge. Brief, faint, then gone. Noah's voice broke the quiet. Mr. Carter, someone's still out there. I know. Are they looking for her? For her, for me, maybe for you. Noah swallowed hard. Soul shut the curtain. They won't find their way in tonight. He checked the rifle again, checked the bolt again, checked the stove again. The woman watched him with something like disbelief. How simply he moved, how certain each decision appeared. You don't even know my name, she said. Names don't keep folks alive, Saul answered. Walls do, heat does, doors do. We'll get to names when daylight shows us if the Lord's still with us. Noah pulled the blanket up to her chin. Gentle, careful. Soul nodded once. Rest, while you can. The storm slammed against the cabin as if hearing him. The woman closed her eyes. Noah stepped back. Soul sat in the lone chair by the door, rifle across his lap, boots planted, shoulders squared, guarding the line between them and the men the storm hadn't scared off. Outside, the wind carried a sound only a hunted woman would recognize. Hooves pacing, waiting, choosing which trail to follow when the night finally broke. Dawn didn't break so much as creep, gray and thin, through the seams of the shutters. The storm had eased, but the cold hadn't. It clung to the cabin the way debt clung to a man, quiet, patient, waiting for him to make a mistake. Saul hadn't slept. He sat where he'd sat all night, rifle balanced across his knees, boots planted, eyes fixed on the line of frost gathering at the bottom of the door. Noah lay wrapped in blankets near the stove, pretending to rest, but each crack of settling wood made him flinch. The woman was awake too. She lay still, studying the rafters as if counting them kept her alive. When she tried to push upright, Saul spoke without looking. Slow. She braced a hand on the cot. Her legs trembled under the effort, but she managed to sit. What time is it? She asked. Near 7. Will they come back? Only question is which trail they try first. Her jaw tightened. She glanced toward the window, then toward the table, toward the folded slip of paper Noah had brought in the night before. The red seal gleamed even in the dim. Saul picked it up, weighing it between 2 fingers. This yours? She didn't answer. Noah sat up. It fell when they dragged you. The woman swallowed once. Saul broke the seal with his thumb. The sound, Soft, cracking wax felt louder than it should have in the quiet. A loan record, a foreclosure notice, not for her, for land at the mouth of Ash Creek Pass, land worth more than the whole town would ever admit. Saul's shoulders went rigid. Crane's hand is all over this, he said. The woman lowered her gaze. I told you. He wanted me gone before sunrise. Saul turned the paper so she could see the signature. This why he sent him after you. I saw him with those maps, she whispered. Saw him marking routes. Red ink, same as that seal. What were you doing anywhere near Crane's maps? I worked in Dr. Hale's back room, cleaned bottles, sorted herbs. The office shared a wall with Crane's. I heard things. What kind of things? Her fingers twisted the blanket. About the pass. About cutting a road through it. About needing the Carter land to make it happen. Noah's head snapped up. Your land, Mr. Carter? Saul didn't respond at first. His face changed subtly, jaw setting, breath steadying, eyes narrowing with the kind of calm only men who've buried loved ones can manage. Crane's wanted it for years, he said. Bank papers come every winter. Thought this year he'd push harder. The woman looked at him steadily. He's not pushing, he's taking. Saul folded the paper again, slower this time, as if folding a verdict. Noah shifted closer. Sir, what do we do now? The same thing we were doing last night, Saul said. Stay alive. He moved to the cupboard, pulled down a tin of coffee grounds, and set water to boil. Noah rose automatically to help, but Saul shook his head. Eat first, then woodpile. Yes, sir. The woman tried to stand again. Her knees buckled. She caught the edge of the table. Saul crossed the room in 2 strides, steadying her elbow. Not today. I can't stay, she rasped. You've seen the seal. Crane will come for that paper, and anyone holding it. That's why you ain't walking out. She met his stare, searching for doubt. There was none. Noah brought her a mug of warm water. She hesitated before taking it, like someone expecting to be struck for reaching. Saul noticed. He ain't here, Saul said. And this is my house. A long breath shuddered out of her. Not relief, just surrender to the simple fact she couldn't stand on her own legs. Saul stepped back. But the moment he did, hoofbeats thudded faintly over the ridge. All 3 stilled. Noah whispered, They're back. Saul went to the window, lifting the curtain just enough to see. A lone rider moved along the far fence line. No lantern this time, just a slow, searching pace. They're looking for tracks the storm didn't bury, Saul said. Won't find 'em. How long before they try the house? Noah asked. Longer than they want, Saul replied. Shorter than we need. The woman closed her eyes. Saul turned from the window and set the sealed paper on the mantel, high and out of reach. You ain't going anywhere, he said. Not till I know what Crane's after and why he used a blizzard to hide it. She opened her eyes again. A flicker, fear or memory, moved through them. Mr. Carter, she whispered. Crane didn't use the blizzard to hide me. Sol raised a brow. He used the blizzard to hide what he did before they dragged me out. Another gust slammed the cabin wall, rattling the stovepipe. Noah swallowed. What did he do? She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely more than a crack in the air. He killed the only man who knew the truth, and he meant for the snow to bury both of us. The kettle hissed. The rider paused outside. The morning tightened around them like a noose, and Saul realized the storm hadn't brought trouble to his door. Crane had. The rider on the ridge didn't linger. He circled once, slow as a buzzard measuring a carcass, then vanished into the folds of the storm's leftovers. Saul watched until the last blur of movement dissolved into white. Only then did he lower the curtain. "We ain't got hours," he said. "Maybe half of one." He crossed to the stove, pulled on his coat, and lifted the barn key from the hook beside the door. "Noah, woodpile first, then check the trough. Cows sounded off in the night." Noah blinked. "In that storm?" "Cows don't lie about pain." The woman tried to stand again. Her voice rasped like someone dragging chain. "Let me help. You can't walk straight. I know what sick cattle sound like." Sol studied her, quick, sharp, assessing the way a man assesses a bridge before crossing it. Then he nodded once. "You fall, I carry you back. No arguments." She didn't promise anything, just pulled the blanket tighter and braced herself on the table. Noah slipped under her arm, steadying without asking permission. They stepped out into the cold. The storm had died, but its teeth were still in everything. Snow crusted the fence rails. Ice clung to the water barrel. The barn door groaned as Saul heaved it open. Inside, the breath hit them first. Hot, wet, wrong. The led cow was hunched near the trough, sides heaving. Two others pressed close, stamping, snorting low. Sol strode forward, running a flat palm down the lead cow's flank. The hide trembled. "Fever," he muttered. The woman moved beside him, gripping the stall post to stay upright. Her eyes sharpened. "Look at the feed." Noah fetched a lantern. The light cut through the shadows, landing on the hay pile. Something glittered faintly where glitter had no business being. "Don't touch," she warned. Sol reached with the pitchfork instead. He lifted a clump of hay, shook it out. Tiny black flecks rained down, too uniform, too deliberate. "Nightshade stems," she said, "dried and mixed in." Noah's breath hitched. "Someone tried to kill him?" "Not someone," Sol said. "Crane." The woman crouched, fingers brushing a few of the stems. "This isn't wild. Someone carried it in." Sol's jaw flexed. "Boys who work for him been sniffing around since October." The lead cow moaned, low, agonized. Noah flinched. "What do we do?" "We fix it," Sol said. "Fast." He grabbed the shovel and started clearing every ounce of tainted hay. The woman took the lantern from Noah and moved to the workbench, rifling through jars. "Charcoal," she said. "Molasses if you got any." Back shelf. She found both. Her hands shook, but she kept working, crushing charcoal, mixing it with thick brown syrup until the mixture turned black and sticky. "Open her mouth," she said. Saul didn't question her. He snared the cow's jaw and held it firm while the woman scooped the mixture into her palm and fed it in small, steady swipes. The cow choked, coughed, swallowed. "Again," the woman said. "All of it." They worked until the bucket was empty. Noah wiped sweat from his forehead, though the air was cold enough to bite skin. "Will she live?" "If the Lord lets her," the woman murmured. "If not, Saul, enough cattle die. Crane owns your land by spring." The barn went very quiet. Saul stared at the cow, at the trough, at the black flecks still scattered in the hay cracks. His face didn't change, but his shoulders tightened under his coat. He spoke like a man counting hours. "If he poisoned 'em once, he'll try again." "That's why he tossed me into the storm," the woman whispered. "Not to punish me, to keep anyone from listening." Saul shut the barn door with a firm shove. "Noah," he said, "bring me every clean sack we got. Feed gets locked in the cabin till I build a new bin." "Yes, sir." A gust of wind swept frost under the barn boards. The woman steadied herself on the stall wall. "You understand now?" "I understand Crane ain't satisfied taking one life at a time," Saul answered. "He's after everything that keeps this house standing." Noah returned with the sacks. Saul hauled them over his shoulder, muscles straining. "Winter's barely started," Saul said, "and we're already in his noose." The woman didn't argue. She didn't have to. Outside, hoofbeats echoed again, distant this time but steady, searching, circling. Noah whispered, "Mr. Carter, they're coming back." Saul didn't look at the ridge. He didn't need to. "They will," he said, "'cause Crane ain't done. 'Cause this storm didn't hide his tracks half as well as he thought." He tightened his grip on the sacks. "And 'cause he knows now we're still breathing." Snow began to fall again by the time they reached the cabin. Not heavy, just enough to blur the world, enough to hide a footstep or invent one. Saul shoved the feed sacks inside, then paused on the threshold, listening. The wind carried nothing but the faint groan of branches rubbing together. "Inside," he said. Noah followed. The woman leaned against the door frame to catch her breath. Saul shut the door, slid the deadbolt, and set the sacks near the stove where no one could tamper with them. He'd barely hung his coat when knuckles rapped hard on the wood. 3 knocks. Measured. Official. Noah froze. The woman's face blanched. Saul didn't move at first. Then he lifted the rifle from the chair, held it low, and stepped to the window. He tipped the curtain with one finger. Sheriff Doyle stood on the porch, hat brim heavy with frost. Behind him, a taller figure in a black overcoat leaned casually against the hitch rail, the kind of posture a man used when he was certain he owned whatever his eyes touched. Bartholomew Crane. Saul opened the door only as wide as manners required. "Sheriff? Mr. Carter?" Doyle cleared his throat, mustache rimed white. "Cold morning?" "Cold's honest." Saul's eyes slid to Crane. "Some men ain't." Crane smiled. a thin, polished thing with no warmth and no intent to hide it. "Solomon Carter," he said smoothly. "Always a pleasure." Sol didn't return the greeting. Doyle shifted, wringing his hat. "We got business, Sol. Bank business." "Bank never sleeps," Crane added, "even in weather like this." Sol didn't widen the door. "Say what you came for." Doyle pulled a folded packet from his coat. The edges were crisp despite the storm, the mark of a document prepared before dawn. "Notice of overdue debt," the sheriff said. 60 days late. Bank requires payment in full within 20. Noah sucked in a breath. Crane's smile sharpened. "I know winter's been hard on everyone. Feed prices up, cattle down. But rules are rules. Surely a man like you understands that." Sol did not take the paper. Doyle held it a little farther. "You're required to receive it, Sol. Ain't my choice." Sol finally reached out, slow, deliberate, and pinched the paper between two fingers as though touching something vile. He didn't look at its contents. He didn't need to. Crane gestured toward the yard. "I noticed tracks by your barn. Heavy ones. Someone visiting this morning?" "No one here but me and the boy," Sol said. "And yet," Crane murmured, eyes glinting, "I hear stories about a woman dragging poison into town. The kind of woman who shouldn't be sheltered by decent Christian folk." Inside the cabin, the woman steadied herself against the wall, breathing painfully quiet. Sol's jaw tightened. "You accusing me of hiding someone?" Crane lifted his gloved hands. "Accusing? No. Merely observing." His gaze drifted past Sol's shoulder, as if measuring the cabin's shadows. "Sheriff, wouldn't you say this house seems occupied?" Doyle shifted uncomfortably. "Just routine talk, Sol. Folks are nervous. Snow like this makes men superstitious." Crane stepped closer, too close, but Sol did not step back. "I'll be plain," Crane said. "If a certain woman wanders to your door, you'd be wise to turn her over. Quick, keeps the peace, and it keeps misunderstandings from affecting your loan." Noah gripped the edge of the table hard enough for his knuckles to pale. Sol said nothing. Crane let the silence stretch, enjoying it like a man savoring a sip of warm brandy. Then he tipped his hat. 20 days, Mr. Carter. After that, the bank reclaims the land. And we both know Ash Creek Pass can't wait much longer." With a final nod to the sheriff, Crane turned and descended the steps, boots crunching on the thin skin of ice. Doyle lingered. "Sol, if she's in there." "She ain't," Sol said. Doyle swallowed. "It'd be easier if you kept it that way." Sol shut the door in his face. The bolt slammed home. The cabin held its breath. Noah whispered, "He knows." Sol laid the rifle across the table. "He suspects. Not the same." The woman pressed a hand to her ribs. "Crane won't stop with paper." "I know. He'll send men." "I know that too." She leaned against the wall, strength fading fast. "You should have handed me over." Sol looked at her then, a long look, steady as a nailed hinge. That ain't how this house works. Outside, hooves cracked across the frozen road as Crane rode away. Slowly, like a man satisfied with the match he'd just struck. The flame he left behind would come for all of them. And Saul knew with the certainty of a man who's buried too much already. Paper wasn't the weapon Crane planned to use next. The door had barely stopped trembling from Crane's exit when the woman's legs gave out. Saul caught her before she hit the floor, lifted her with one arm, and set her back on the cot. Noah hovered nearby, eyes flicking from the shut door to the sealed notice lying on the table. "Mr. Carter, 20 days ain't enough." Saul didn't answer. He stared at Crane's signature. Ink so neat it looked carved. The kind of neatness men used when they meant to erase somebody. The woman drew a slow breath. "It's not just the loan." Saul looked at her. "Say it plain." She pushed herself upright, gripping the cot frame with both hands because her strength wouldn't hold otherwise. "Crane doesn't care if I poisoned anyone. He doesn't care if the mob drags me through the street. He needed me gone before he finishes something he started weeks ago." Saul waited. She nodded toward the folded notice. "That land he's trying to take. It's not random. It's the key." Noah frowned. "Key to what?" "To the pass," she said. "To the only cut wide enough to drive freight wagons through come spring." Saul's eyes narrowed, just a fraction. "Ash Creek Pass ain't worth that kind of blood. Not unless the railroad surveyors are right." She swallowed. "They say it shaves 30 miles off the line." Noah blinked. "Railroad? Coming here?" "If Crane gets the Carter land," she whispered, "he owns the choke point. Every cart, every line of supplies, every bit of freight. He controls it." Saul turned away for a moment. Just a moment. Enough to steady the anger rising behind his ribs. "He kill a man over this?" Saul asked. Her voice thinned. "Dr. Hale, 3 nights ago. He came back from seeing Crane, white as a sheet. Said he'd witnessed something in Crane's office. Something about forged mineral rights and bribes to the county clerk. He meant to speak to the judge at first light." Her hands clenched. "He never made it. They said he slipped on the ice. But the back of his skull—" She stopped, breath catching. "Crane's men cleaned the office before anyone noticed." Noah's small voice cracked. "And you saw?" "I cleaned the doctor's room. I found a scrap of the map lodged behind a crate, red ink marking Carter land." She shut her eyes briefly. "Crane saw me see it." A gust hammered the window as if in agreement. Saul paced once, slow and heavy, the floorboards groaning under his boots. "That's why he tossed you out there," he said. Not a question, just an indictment. "He couldn't kill 2 people in one night with the same story," she said. "So he used the storm, figured the snow would finish what his men started." Noah stepped closer to Saul. "Sir, what do we do?" Saul considered the map he'd seen once years before. Old, hand-drawn, useless to most men. But now the pieces shifted. The poisoned cows. The sudden loan deadline. Crane standing at his porch in the middle of a blizzard, like a banker making house calls just for pleasure. He spoke low, controlled. Means Crane's not after her life. He's after the land. Her death was just the shovel to cover his tracks. Noah's eyes widened. And he ain't gonna stop. No, Soul said. He ain't. The woman gripped the edge of the cot. You should let me leave. If he finds me here, he already knows you didn't die, Saul cut in. Else he wouldn't have come sniffin' with the sheriff. The woman shook her head weakly. He'll burn this place down to get that notice. And if he thinks you're helping me... Soul moved closer until she met his gaze. This house don't run by Crane's rules. Another gust rocked the cabin. The stove rattled. Somewhere outside, a distant shout rose, then faded. Men calling to each other, or calling to hounds. Hard to tell in the cold. Noah stepped to the window. Mr. Carter, someone's on the lower trail. Soul joined him. Two figures trudged through the drifts, following the fence line, heads bent. Not riders, searchers. He's widening the circle, Soul said. For me, the woman whispered. For the paper, Soul corrected. For the land. The woman's breath hitched. Soul, you'll lose everything. He shook his head once. Not without a fight. Noah looked between them, voice trembling despite trying hard to steady it. Sir, we can't outrun the bank. We can't outrun Crane's men. No, Soul said. But we can outthink 'em. How? The boy asked. Soul tapped the folded notice, then the sealed crest, then the edge of the table. Crane's weakest where he thinks he's strongest, he said. Paper. The woman frowned. You can't beat him with paper. No, Soul agreed. But we can beat him with someone who ain't afraid to print it. Noah blinked. You mean Miss Whitfield? The Gazette lady? Soul nodded once. The woman exhaled sharply. Ada Whitfield? She won't touch this. Crane funds half the paper. She don't need to touch it to make trouble, Soul said. She just needs to look at it. Another shout echoed through the snow, closer, more certain. The woman's voice shook. They've started searching outbuildings. Noah swallowed. Mr. Carter, sir. What now? Soul lifted the notice, folded it into his coat, and reached for his rifle. Now, he said, we keep breathin' till sundown. The wind clawed the windows as if trying to get inside. But after that, Soul added, Crane's gonna learn winter ain't the only thing in this valley that bites. By midday, the snow had settled into a cruel quiet, the kind that made every footstep sound like it belonged to someone coming for you. Soul kept the curtains drawn, checking each shutter twice, then a third time. The woman rested only because her body forced her to, not because fear allowed it. Noah paced. He kept glancing at the notice in Saul's coat, then at the door, then at the frost crawling up the window's edge like a slow-moving threat. Mr. Carter, he said finally. Soul didn't look up from the stove. Speak. I know something that might help. The woman shifted on the cot, eyelids half open. Soul turned. Say it plain. Noah licked his lips. Those maps she talked about? The ones Crane keeps? I've seen 'em. Soul stared. Where? In the bank, Noah said, voice low but steady. Back office. I used to sweep there for 50 cents a week. Mr. Crane never looked at me twice. None of his men do. To them, I'm just small. The woman's brow tightened. Crane keeps the pass maps locked. Not always, Noah said. He leaves 'em out when he's talking with the railroad man. I've seen red lines, circles, Carter land marked like a bullseye. Soul's jaw worked once. Anger, calculation, acceptance all moving inside him like gears. You know the back way in? Soul asked. Yes, sir. Through the coal chute. It sticks. You gotta lift while you push. The woman struggled upright. No, absolutely not. Soul didn't answer her. Noah is a child, she said sharply, the most strength she'd shown since the storm. Crane will gut him and leave him in the alley. Noah squared his shoulders. He won't see me. He never did. That's not reassurance, she snapped. Soul lifted a hand, ending the argument with a gesture. Boy, you tell everything you know. Noah nodded. Crane locks up the main office at night, but the accounting room, sometimes not. Papers on the desk, ledgers. I've seen envelopes with county stamps, maps with red wax marks. If we get one, just one, that matches your land. Soul finished for him. We got proof he's rigging the foreclosure. The woman shook her head, breathing quick. Crane will have men watching, not riders, his bookkeepers. They walk quiet. They don't drink. They'll hear a mouse. Noah's voice softened. I ain't a mouse. She reached out, gripping the edge of the table. You will not send him. Soul finally looked at her, steady and level. I ain't sending him anywhere yet. But you're considering it. Considering don't mean choosing. Outside, faint voices drifted along the wind, men calling to each other. The search widening again. The woman stiffened. We don't have hours. No, Soul agreed. We got maybe one night before Crane shifts from paper to bullets. Noah stepped forward. Mr. Carter, if we don't get proof, he takes the land. He takes her. Then he takes me. I heard the bookkeepers talk, sir. They said orphans get placed anywhere convenient. Crane knows that too. The woman's breath caught. Just once, but enough. Noah, Soul said, you know this ain't no game. Yes, sir. You get caught. I might not reach you in time. I know, sir. And you go anyway? Noah didn't blink. If we don't do nothing, he don't even need to catch me. He just needs one cold night and a reason. Silence hung sharp between them, thinner than glass. The woman whispered, He's right. Soul turned. You just said, I know what I said. She closed her eyes briefly. But Crane won't stop until he has what he wants. If the boy can get something that puts a crack in Crane's armor, it's a chance we don't have otherwise. Soul stepped back, weighing the two of them. Not their words, but their resolve. Noah standing straight despite shaking knees. the woman sitting upright though every muscle trembled, both facing a man who held the entire valley in one hand. Soul exhaled once. Noah. Yes, sir? If you go, you take nothing that ain't paper. You touch no money, no lockboxes, no drawers. You take one thing only, proof Crane can't talk his way out of. Yes, sir. You get what you came for, you run straight home. You hear a floor creak, you freeze. You hear voices, you hide. You see Crane. You turn around and leave. You don't get brave. You get smart. Yes, sir. The woman swallowed. And if he doesn't make it back? Soul picked up his rifle and checked the chamber with a click that sounded like someone cutting rope. Then, he said quietly, Crane's men ain't the only ones who can burn a building down. Noah stared at him, unsure whether that was comfort or a warning. It didn't matter. The decision had already been made by the simple fact they were still breathing, and Crane didn't intend for any of them to be. Night settled over Ash Creek like a lid closing on a coffin. Quiet, tight, final. The cold sharpened the streets until even the lamps hissed when their flames leaned into the wind. Most folks had barred their doors hours ago. Only the saloon kept a slit of light, and even that flickered like it wanted to die. Noah Pike kept to the alleys. A wool scarf hid the lower half of his face. Snow muffled his boots. His breath steamed in short bursts. Too fast, too young for this kind of work, but steady in the way boys learn to be when no one else will keep them all of Shaw. He reached the coal alley behind Crane's bank. The building loomed tall, its windows dark, its edges hard as chisels against the sky. The back corner was shadowed, exactly as Noah remembered from the weeks he swept floors for pocket change. He crouched. The coal chute sat half buried under drifted snow. Rust ate at its hinges. Its mouth was just wide enough for a small boy to slip through. Noah brushed snow aside and pressed his shoulder to the metal while lifting from underneath. It groaned, loud enough to slice the night. He froze. Somewhere across the street, a dog barked once, then went silent again. No voices followed. Noah pushed harder. The chute gave with a shudder, opening a black throat into the storage pit beneath the bank. A breath of cold coal dust exhaled upward. He slid inside. The chute closed behind him with a dull thump. Dark swallowed him whole. Hands first, then knees. He crawled forward. Coal shifted under his palms. The smell choked tight at his throat, but he kept moving until the stone wall met his fingers. The pit's wooden door was above him. Mr. Crane's men never bothered to lock it. Nobody but Noah ever came down here anyway. He found the latch by touch. A soft click. He pushed. Light seeped in from under the office door. Dim, golden, steady. Noah eased up the stairs, one step at a time, careful not to breathe too deeply. At the top, he pressed his ear to the crack. Silence. He slipped inside the main room. The desks sat in perfect order. Ledger stacks aligned with edges razor straight. Pens wiped dry. Not a chair out of place. Crane's empire of paper. And there, on the far desk, A map spread wide, held flat by two brass weights. Red ink crossed it. Red circles, red X's, and Carter land at the choke point like the center of a target. Noah crossed the room on silent feet. The map's surface reflected lamplight from the hallway. Someone had been here only minutes ago. Maybe Crane himself. The lamp still warm proved it. Noah's pulse hammered. He reached for the map. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. He jerked back, ducking behind the desk, heart slamming against his ribs so hard he thought the sound might give him away. Bootsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. Not Crane. Too light, too cautious. One of the bookkeepers. The doorknob turned an inch. Noah flattened himself, hands tight against the floorboards. The knob turned again. Then, footsteps retreated down the hall. A door clicked somewhere deeper inside the bank. Noah waited 3 breaths. 5. 10. He slid out from under the desk, fingers trembling only when they reached the far edge of the map. He rolled it fast, tight, careful, to keep the ink from cracking. He tucked it under his coat. But something else lay half-hidden under the ledger beside it. A transfer slip bearing Crane's signature and a second stamp Noah didn't recognize, sharp and new. It listed a payment. $3,000. To a name Noah did know. Sheriff Harlan Doyle. Noah's stomach dropped. He grabbed the slip. A sound cut through the dark. The click of a revolver hammer drawn back. Noah froze. A voice whispered from the doorway, thin as a blade. "Boy, you shouldn't be here." Noah didn't look up. Didn't breathe. The gun clicked again. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then shouts erupted outside. Men calling down the street. A horse screaming as it slipped on ice. The bookkeeper at the door turned his head instinctively at the commotion. Noah moved. He dove for the coal chute room, slamming the door behind him, tumbling down the steps. Coal scraped his knees. Pain shot up his leg. He didn't stop. Boots thundered after him. The chute was jammed with snow, but he shoved, heaved, kicked until the rusted mouth broke open with a shriek that tore into the night. He spilled out into the alley. The bookkeeper lunged for the opening, too slow. Noah ran. Snow flew behind him in ragged bursts. His lungs burned raw. His fingers ached around the map and the transfer slip. He didn't look back. He didn't have to. The chilling truth was already written across both papers in his hands. Crane wasn't working alone. The sheriff was bought, marked, and paid for. And Ash Creek had just become a trap with no law left in it. Noah didn't remember half the run home. Only the cold tearing at his lungs and the burn of blood trickling from the cut he'd taken somewhere between the alley and the main road. The map thumped against his ribs beneath his coat. The transfer slip stuck to his palm with sweat. The cabin's lantern glowed like a promise through the trees. He staggered toward it, and a hand shot out of the dark, clamping across his mouth. Another wrenched his wrist, twisting the papers free. Noah kicked, clawed, bit, but the man behind him was a wall of winter coat and leather, smelling of tobacco and old iron. A voice hissed in his ear. "Easy, boy. Sheriff wants a word." A second man, bounty gun by the look of him, lifted the map. He took it, told you. The first man chuckled. Crane pays double for brats who steal. Noah drove his heel into the man's shin. The grip tightened until his ribs screamed. The bounty hunter cuffed Noah across the jaw. Snow flashed white. The world lurched sideways. Voices blurred together. Get the rope. Tie him tight. Sheriff says bring him to the barn side. Less eyes. Noah fought until his strength bled out of him. One last glimpse, the cabin chimney smoking against the night. Then the sack dropped over his head. Sol Carter heard the crack of a branch outside before the cabin door even rattled from the wind. He set his rifle down slow, sensing the shift in the night. Something missing. Something wrong. Noah should have returned by now. The woman pushed herself upright on the cot. He's late. Too late, Sol said. He reached the window, peeled the curtain aside. No movement, no tracks. Only the hollow hush of snow that swallowed secrets whole. He stepped out onto the porch, rifle under his coat. The snow near the woodpile had been disturbed, not by boots, but by a struggle. Scuffs, a heel mark, a smear of what looked like blood before the frost filled it halfway. Sol's throat locked. Behind him, the woman's voice cracked low. Sol, over here. She pointed to a post near the fence. A strip of paper was pinned there with a hunting knife. Sol tore it free. The note was short. Bend Town Depot. At sundown. Bring the woman or the boy hangs. No signature. No need. Crane's hand was in every line. The woman sagged against the porch rail. Oh, God. Sol's jaw hardened until his teeth ached. They got him alive. She stared at the note. You can't go, it's a trap. They'll kill you both and claim you resisted arrest. He's just a boy. I know, she whispered, gripping the rail, which is why they chose him. Sol folded the note once, then again, as if each crease was a nail in a coffin Crane had built too many times. He's breathing till I get there. The woman stepped in front of him, palms against his chest, though her hands shook. If you walk into Crane's hands, no one leaves alive. I ain't walking into his hands, Sol said. I'm walking into his mistake. She shook her head. He wants me, Sol, not you. Sol looked at her then, hard, steady, unblinking. That's why you ain't going alone. A gust of wind hit them, carrying voices from the ridge, approaching fast. She froze. They're closing in. Sol slipped the rifle under his coat, grabbed her arm, and steered her back into the cabin. No time. We move now. Her breath hitched. To the depot? To end this. She looked at him, searching his face for something she needed. Permission, courage, maybe a reason not to run back into the storm. But Sol gave her only the truth. Noah's hanging by a thread, and Crane's holding the scissors. He blew out the lantern, slung his rifle across his back, and opened the rear door. The night swallowed them at once. Behind them, nailed to the porch post, the knife gleamed faintly, pointing toward the depot like a compass drawn in blood. The depot lamps glowed like bruises against the snow, yellow, swollen, too dim to comfort anyone who knew what waited there. Saul and the woman kept to the line of freight crates as they approached, moving low, boots soundless over ice. Sundown had come and gone. Night settled thick on Ash Creek. The freight yard was not empty. 10 men stood in a loose half-circle near the platform. Cranes hired guns, wide-brim hats pulled low, rifles angled but not raised. Sheriff Doyle stood apart, arms crossed, face drawn tight as an overstretched rope. A lantern dangled from a hook above them, swinging with each breath of wind, and tied to the post beneath it. Noah. Rope bit into his wrists. His face was pale under the lantern glow, jaw bruised, lips split. But his eyes were open, wide, searching. Saul's steps slowed. "He's alive," the woman whispered. "For now." Saul scanned the yard, every crate, every gap, every shadow deep enough to hide a man. Crane wasn't visible, which meant he was close. A voice floated from behind the water tower, smooth as oiled leather. "Right on time, Mr. Carter." Crane stepped into the lantern glow, black coat brushing the snow, gloves spotless despite the cold. He looked like he'd come to collect a debt, not a boy's life. The woman stiffened beside Saul. Crane smiled thinly. "Good." She came. The woman kept her chin level. "Where's Noah's coat? He's freezing." Crane's brow lifted. "He won't be needing it long if we disagree." Noah saw Saul then. The boy's eyes flicked once. Hope, fear, a warning. Saul read it all without needing a word. Crane gestured toward the woman. "Send her forward. I'll let the boy go." Saul stepped out before she could move. "You let him go first." Crane clicked his tongue. "Still pretending you have leverage." Noah winced as one of the hired guns tugged the rope tighter. Crane's smile widened. "If you think I'm above killing a child in public, you don't know who holds this town." The woman whispered, "Saul." "Stay back," Saul said. The guns shifted. Not raised, yet. Not lowered, ever. Crane nodded to Sheriff Doyle. "Sheriff, kindly do your duty." Doyle didn't move. Crane's eyes sharpened. "Sheriff." Doyle swallowed, stepped forward grudgingly, and cleared his throat. "Ash Creek law states an accused can be remanded to custody." "Don't quote law you got paid to ignore," Saul said. Doyle flinched. Crane's gaze snapped toward him. But Saul wasn't looking at the sheriff anymore. He was looking at the boy. "Noah," he said softly, "you still got what you took?" The yard froze. Crane's head turned slow. "What he took?" Noah opened his mouth, hesitating only a breath, then dropped something from his sleeve. It hit the snow with a soft plunk. A rolled map. The red ink map. Crane's map. Every gun in the yard pointed at Noah at once. Crane's voice cracked like a whip. "Pick that up!" Noah didn't move. Crane turned slowly to Saul. "You think this is a negotiation?" "No," Saul said. I think it's a demonstration. From behind the depot door, a second lantern flared to life. A woman stepped out, coat buttoned tight, gloves ink-stained, hair pinned under a reporter's hat. Ada Whitfield, editor of the Ash Creek Gazette. Her voice carried like a bell struck in winter. I heard the sheriff was conducting public business tonight. Crane's face drained of color before the cold could claim it. Ada walked to the edge of the platform, notebook tucked under her arm, pen already in her hand. Funny, Mr. Crane. I don't recall a legal hearing scheduled, or a warrant for a child. Crane's voice thinned. Miss Whitfield, this is a private matter. In a public yard. She raised her brows. With guns? Doyle muttered, Ada, don't. She ignored him completely. Ada pointed to the map lying in the snow. That yours? Crane didn't answer. Sol stepped forward. It is. Ada's pen paused. Mr. Carter, you sure? Sure as the cold, Sol said. Boy took it from Crane's office, along with a transfer slip. Ada's gaze sharpened. Transfer to who? Sol looked straight at Doyle. The sheriff's face collapsed. Ada, it ain't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Sol said. Ada's pen scratched on the paper. Bribery, collusion, foreclosure manipulation, illegal seizure of land at a railroad choke point. Crane lunged toward her. Stop writing. 3 rifles cocked instantly. Sol's, 2 of Crane's men unsure of which side to aim at. Ada didn't even flinch. Mr. Crane, she said calmly, did you or did you not authorize a payment of $3,000 to Sheriff Doyle? Noah lifted his chin. He did. I saw the paper. Ada's voice rose. Sheriff Doyle, did you take that money? Doyle looked around, at the hired guns, at the depot, at the town that never gave him more than a polite nod. His shoulders sagged. I did. Crane spun, furious. You fool! Doyle held up his hand. I ain't going down alone. Ada stepped off the platform, boots crunching loud in the packed snow. Mr. Crane, if you'd like to deny any of these allegations, now is the appropriate time. Crane's face twisted. He grabbed Noah by the hair, jerking him forward. The gunman tensed. Everybody stays right where they are, Crane hissed. You print one word of this, and the boy dies here. Tonight. Sol raised his rifle, but didn't fire. Noah was too close. Ada didn't back up. The whole town's listening. Indeed. Doors had cracked open along Main Street. Lanterns appeared. Faces gathered in the dark, watching from porches, from alleys, from behind windows. Crane's grip faltered. Just a flicker. But enough. Noah's hand opened. A second paper dropped. The transfer slip, right at Ada's feet. Ada snatched it. Sheriff Doyle's signature, and Crane's. Crane roared, Shoot her! But his own men hesitated. Some stepped back. Others glanced toward the growing crowd. A few lowered their rifles entirely. Crane shoved Noah aside and reached for his holster. Sol fired. Not to kill. The bullet ripped into the wagon wheel behind Crane, splintering wood, spinning iron, jolting the entire platform. Crane stumbled, losing balance, and losing the crowd. The woman sprinted forward, cutting Noah's ropes with the fallen knife. Ada lifted the map high in the air. "This is evidence of criminal seizure of homesteader land." Shouts rose. Chairs scraped on porches. Men stepped into the open. Voices shouted for Crane's arrest. Crane backed up, breath showing in harsh bursts, eyes wild. Doyle lifted his badge, hands shaking. "Bartholomew Crane, you're under arrest for—" Crane swung, slapped the badge out of his hand. "You useless coward!" Sol stepped between them. Crane froze at the look in Sol's eyes. "You're done," Sol said. Crane opened his mouth, but the crowd drowned him out. Noah clung to the woman's coat. Ada tucked the map under her arm with the triumph of someone who'd just lit a fuse in a powder room. Crane snarled like a trapped animal. "You haven't won." Sol raised his rifle again. The lantern above them swung in the wind, casting long, bruised shadows across the yard. And for the first time all night, Crane looked small, cornered, outnumbered, beaten not by bullets, but by what fell into the snow at the right moment. Crane didn't make it 5 steps before the crowd split open. Not for him, but for a figure wrapped in a wool shawl, hair silvered, breath brittle as winter glass. Evelyn Crane. Crane's wife. Bedridden for years, so they all thought. She moved like someone who'd learned to hide pain long before learning to speak. "Bartholomew," she said quietly. Crane froze, color draining like a punctured vein. "Evelyn, you shouldn't be out here." She held something to her chest. A ledger bound in black, edges frayed from years of hands that hid more than they healed. Ada Whitfield stepped forward, stunned. "Mrs. Crane?" Evelyn didn't look away from her husband. "This ends tonight." Crane hissed. "You go back home right now." "No," she said, voice thin but steady. "You won't drag this valley down with you." She extended the ledger. Ada reached it first, flipping it open. Her eyes widened. Column after column of names. Dates, bribes, ghost mortgages, illegal notes signed with the bank's seal and Crane's flourish. The crowd surged. Murmurs turned sharp. No one defended Crane now. Evelyn whispered, "You started this 20 years ago, Bartholomew, and you thought I didn't know." Crane lunged, but Sol blocked him with one arm. Crane stumbled back, glove sinking into the snow. "Get him out of my way!" Crane barked at his hired men. None moved. Doyle stepped up, hat trembling between his hands. "Bartholomew Crane, you are hereby—" Crane bolted. He shoved through 2 gawkers, crashed past the freight office, and sprinted toward the dark end of Main Street. Ada yelled, "Sol, he'll destroy evidence!" Sol didn't need the reminder. He grabbed his rifle and tore after Crane. The woman gathered Noah, pressing him close as fear rippled through the crowd. Evelyn staggered, and Ada caught her, shielding her with her own coat. Sol ran. Snow hammered his boots. Breath burned his throat. Crane stumbled ahead, slipping, cursing, but running harder than any banker ought to. Saul knew where he was headed before Crane even turned the corner. The cabin. Crane had one move left, one way to erase everything that connected him to tonight. Burn the house. Burn the woman. Burn the boy's footprints. Burn whatever papers Crane imagined were hidden there. Erase the story before the Gazette could print it. Saul crested the ridge, and there, in the dark hollow of cedar trees, his cabin glowed red from within. Flames licked the window frames, hungry and fast. Smoke rose in a violent column. Sparks spat into the branches above like fireflies fleeing judgment. Crane stood at the door, arm buried inside, throwing something else into the flames. A blanket, a ledger, maybe kindling soaked in oil. "Crane!" Saul roared. Crane spun, startled, eyes wild in the firelight. "This all ends," Crane snarled. "I'll see it all burn before I let a Negro rancher and a half-dead drifter ruin me." Drew his pistol. Saul didn't slow. Crane fired. The bullet hissed past Saul's sleeve, and Saul slammed into him hard enough to send them both crashing to the frozen ground. The pistol skittered away, disappearing under the snow crust. Crane clawed, kicking, screaming obscenities. Saul pinned him with one knee, fist raised. "Go on then," Crane spit. "Kill me. Shoot like you did at the depot." Wind howled through the burning cabin, carrying sparks across Saul's coat. The fire was eating the doorframe now. The roof groaned. Timbers cracked like bones under God's judgment. Saul's fist hovered. Crane waited for the blow, wanted it, needed it, because a bullet would make Saul the villain and Crane the martyr. Saul saw it as clearly as he saw the flames chewing through everything he ever built. He lowered his hand. Crane stared, confused, enraged, undone. Saul grabbed Crane's collar and hauled him upright. "You don't get to die on your terms." Crane thrashed. "Let me go!" Saul looped rope from his coat around Crane's wrists in 3 brutal pulls, tying the banker's arms behind his back before the man even realized what was happening. Crane screamed. "You think this changes anything?" Saul dragged him away from the burning house. "It changes everything," Saul said. "'Cause I'm not you." Behind them, hoofbeats thundered as Ada, Doyle, Noah, the woman, and the townsfolk crested the ridge. Gasps cut the night when they saw the flames. Ada shouted, "Saul, the house!" "Let it burn," Saul said. Doyle grabbed Crane by the arm and forced him to his knees. "Bartholomew Crane, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, arson, and anything else we can write before dawn." Crane bellowed, voice cracking under the weight of his fall. "This town is nothing without me." Evelyn stepped forward, shawl fluttering like torn wings. Her voice shook, but not with fear. "This town," she whispered, "is finally free." Crane sagged. The woman moved to Saul's side. Noah slipped his small hand into Saul's rough one. Ada lifted the black ledger. "First edition hits presses before sunrise." Snow began to fall again, soft now, harmless, washing the smoke skyward like absolution. Behind them, the cabin collapsed in a burst of sparks. The home that had sheltered 3 outcasts was gone. but something larger stood in its place. A truth too big to bury, a future too wide to steal, and a family forged in the cold.